This is Wendy Halley, and you're listening to Lucid Cafe. Hey, so I have to ask, for those listeners in the US, how many times have you Googled how to become a Costa Rican citizen? Or what's the cost of living in Belize? I don't know about you, but I kind of feel like I'm watching a really bad, poorly written, made for TV movie where this mob of angry and armed sixth graders wearing matching baseball hats try to take over the government. And it's on every channel, so you can't get away from it. If it wasn't so disturbing, it'd be freaking hilarious. This is serious craziness. But that's not what today's episode is about. Today is all about sound healing. How'd you like that for a transition? I had the good fortune to chat with Eileen McKusick, who, let me just add, was talking to me from her home outside of the US about her innovative work and research in the realm of sound healing. A little about Eileen. She is a pioneering researcher, inventor, writer, practitioner, educator, and speaker in the fields of therapeutic sound, the human biofield, and electric health. She has an MA in integrative education and has been studying the effects of sound on the human body and its electromagnetic system since 1996. She's the originator of the sound therapy method Biofield Tuning and has trained over 2,000 students around the world. She's the founder of the Biofield Tuning Institute, which conducts grant-funded, IRB-approved, and peer-reviewed studies on the human biofield. And she is the author of the award-winning best-selling book, Tuning the Human Biofield, Healing with Vibrational Sound Therapy, as well as her new book, Electric Body, Electric Health, which comes out this month. Please enjoy my conversation with Eileen McKusick. Eileen, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Winnie.
So I want to talk to you about, I started this wellness center. It's been 6 years now, based on this sound and light healing technology. So I've been really interested in sound healing. There's a lot there, and it seems like it's an area that's still being researched a lot, that there's a lot that isn't known about it yet. I guess there's a lot of room to learn about what sound can do for healing. Let me just start by asking you, what even got you into sound healing?
Logic, actually. I came to see that everything is just vibration. Everything is waves in space. Everything is space that's waving, and that includes our natural world, our cosmos, and our own bodies. So if we are fundamentally vibration, then treating vibration with vibration just makes sense. It's logical, it's elegant, it's simple. And that was what attracted me to it.
So how did you even come to that conclusion that everything is vibration? And let's go down the sound wormhole.
Well, I became a quote seeker, if you will, when I was about 18. And I started to search in books for the answer to my profound angst. I was very unhappy. I was very unhealthy. I was actually bulimic and suicidal. I felt schizophrenic, like I had many different voices in my head. I was miserable, actually. And I feel like school, my experience with school really destroyed me in a lot of ways and left me feeling powerless, depressed, just pretty wretched. And I think our educational system does that to quite a lot of people, not just school, but also media. We're shown kind of impossible images of beauty, and we can, I mean, almost everybody falls short. So there's a massive epidemic of low self-esteem, low self-worth, just kind of general misery, and I was just in it. And I skipped 2 grades in school because I have the ability to absorb a lot of information and to synthesize a lot of information pretty quickly. And I just read hundreds of books. I just read a lot of books: Science and Spirituality, Health and Human Potential. I went down rabbit hole after rabbit hole for years, starting at 18. And when I was 24, 25, I just ended up going down the vibrational medicine rabbit hole. I read a number of books on the use of color and sound and music in healing. There weren't a lot out then in the mid 90s, but I felt very drawn to it. It resonated with me. It made sense. And I finished reading my stack of books, and then I got a catalog in the mail that had a set of tuning forks for healing in it. And it just seemed like a really logical thing to give it a try. And at the time, I had a part-time massage therapy practice where I asked my clients who I felt comfortable with if they would be willing to be a guinea pig and let me experiment with them with my tuning forks. And that was back in 1995, 96. And I never stopped using them. I just kept on using tuning forks, and a whole method and modality and organization and community globally has now grown from that first picking up a tuning fork. It just kind of took on a life of its own.
It absolutely has. I mean, you've blown up. It's been really cool to watch because we met before your first book came out, I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did. Yeah.
And it's been just lovely to kind of watch your career and how you've been touching so many people appropriately all,
Yes.
all over the place. So, is there a way to kind of encapsulate the method that you came up with, just like theoretically, what it is that you're doing and teaching people with tuning forks?
Sure. It's based in the physics principles of resonance and entrainment. I know when people hear tuning forks for healing, many have a kind of knee-jerk response that it sounds really woo-woo. It sounds really airy-fairy. And if you can get past that initial thought, you actually find that it's very logical and has basis in other forms of therapy as well. For example, music therapy. Pretty much everybody I know is their own music therapist. Practically everybody I know has a musical playlist, and they use music to shift their state regularly. I mean, are you like that, Wendy? Do you use music therapeutically?
All the time.
All the time. Yeah, most people do. So, okay, great. Well, what is a tuning fork? It's an instrument. It's a single tone generator. And it has the ability in a single tone to inform us and shift our state in the same way that music does. The basic principle is that everything going on in your body is in motion, and everything in motion makes waves, and waves propagate. They propagate off our bodies. And even though they're extremely high frequency, low amplitude frequencies, we still feel them with our bodies, don't we? Like, have you ever gotten a bad vibe off somebody?
Yes. Yeah. A
Right?
few times. Yeah.
Everybody's had that experience of getting a bad vibe. Right. So we know that people give off vibes. And what the tuning forks do that's so fascinating is they actually allow us to hear the vibes that the body is giving off. And the way that they do that is tuning forks produce technically an infinite range of overtones and undertones. So these very, very high overtones, these harmonic multiples of the fundamental, are beyond the hearing range. They're extremely high frequency, low amplitude waveforms. And what those do is they intersect with these very subtle vibrations emanating from the body. And that information in that intersection trickles down through the harmonics. It resonates down through the harmonics into the hearing range, which allows us to actually hear and feel these vibes. And what's so fascinating about the way that they sound is that they mirror how music seeks to express our feelings. So if somebody is feeling fear, they are producing a waveform that is staccato. That, think the Jaws soundtrack. The vibration of fear as we experience it in our body and as we hear it in the tuning forks is a kind of, it's got the pulse of fear, like dun 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 dun, dun. And when you're really scared, you shake, right? That's that waveform of that particular emotion or feeling, because it has this pulsing quality, actually will cause the body to shake when it gets very big. But you can hear it in the tuning forks as well. You can hear sadness. You can hear pain. If I'm holding a tuning fork over an area where someone has sharp pain, the fork will actually sound sharp. Now, what's so amazing about the human body is that when it hears itself, it's like looking in the mirror and seeing you have spinach in your teeth. Like, what do you do? Well, better fix that. That's not right. The body's the same way. A vibrating tuning fork held over the body in an area where the body is producing a dissonant tone will cause the body to become self-aware and actually auto-tune. It will use that input and tune itself like a self-tuning instrument. So repeatedly holding the fork over an area where there is pain, for example, after a few moments, the sharpness will start to come out of the signal. The strong coherent frequency being produced by the tuning fork will entrain the body into a more coherent expression. It will initially resonate with the dissonance that's present, and then the body will work with that coherent tone to entrain itself into a more coherent expression. And the consequence of that is that fear settles down, anxiety settles down, pain settles down, and we take deeper breaths. The fundamental premise of biofield tuning is to locate areas in the electromagnetic body, the electromagnetic system. Okay, so what we're working with is the body's electrical system in its totality. And that's something that we don't really learn about because we're misting the forest for the trees. We get that our heart is electric. We get that our brain is electric. We get that our nervous system is electric. What we don't get is that they're all part of a larger electrical system that is primary in our systems. That when this electrical system is running and your heart is beating, your light is on and you are alive. And when you die, your body is still there, but that electrical system, that light, that juice is what has departed. The light goes out. So the electrical system in its totality is what I call the biofield. And that is all the electrical currents that run through the body and the magnetic field that surrounds the body. And this is another law of physics, that anything that has an electrical current running through it has a magnetic field around it. And so we use sound to interface with the electromagnetic biofield. We locate areas of noise and resistance in this signal. We stay there. The body becomes self-aware and autocorrects. It releases the tension in the physiology that may be creating inflammation, and it allows whatever was frozen in resistance to enter into flow. Health is a state of flow, and it's a state of electrical flow primarily. So biofield tuning is this process of using resonance and entrainment to locate areas where there's noise in the signal of our electric body, harmonize that, release the tension that's created. And the fundamental outcome of all of that is that we breathe more freely and deeply. And breath is the primary mover of energy into and through our systems. We can go for months without food. We can go days without liquids. We can only go moments without breath, because breath delivers electricity to our bodies. We're all stuck in this chemical, mechanical way of looking at things. But the oxygen molecule actually has 4 free electrons, and it's these electrons that bind to the hemoglobin in our blood and get dropped off at cells for cellular activity to take place. It's the same thing with food. When we eat food, the digestive process is one of electrical fermentation that strips the electrons from food and delivers them to cells. So when we eat things that don't have any life or juice in them, like sugar or white flour or anything that's heavily refined, we're not getting the electrical juice that we need for what is living inside of us to continue to live. When we don't breathe enough, we have low energy. Does that answer your question, Wendy? Is that a good encapsulation?
I was just thinking, I would guess that you've probably talked about this before.
Many, many times.
Yeah, it doesn't show at all. Well, yeah, I mean, you've said so many things, and I was trying to pinpoint or subjects in my mind so that I could come back to them. But one of the things that I was thinking as you were talking is that it sounds like Chinese medicine and acupuncture, and I was wondering if tuning forks are kind of like a sound version of needling someone.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, because here's the thing. In Chinese medicine, they talk about qi or qi. Well, the translation of qi or qi is electricity. Now, the Chinese medicine recognizes the more subtle aspects of electromagnetism that Western science kind of doesn't. But it doesn't mean we're not talking about the same thing.
exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because, I mean, typically they're reading your pulse, and that's information. And if there's dissonance in your pulse, so they'll talk about things like, oh, your kidney pulse feels spiky or it feels depleted. And I imagine it can translate through a tuning fork.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very similar approach, because here's the thing, like what's going on in the body is, if you observe it, you kind of, everybody comes to the same conclusions. Every single alternative holistic medicine seeks to remove blockages from the system. Because when the system is in flow, it takes care of itself. So in Chinese medicine, they use needles because they're metal and they attract electricity to put electric juice into the body to stimulate it so that flow is encouraged. There's a whole practice called acutonics that was developed by an acupuncturist who started using tuning forks on acupuncture points. So the aim is absolutely the same. It's to reduce blockages and induce flow in the body's electrical system.
Beautiful. Okay. So let me ask you this. How difficult is it to pick up on these subtle differences when you're listening to the tuning fork?
It's really different for everybody. It really is. Initially, what I really noticed was as I was moving a fork around the body, I would feel in my fingertips where I hit resistance. Kind of a funny thing to be moving a fork through midair, and then all of a sudden you feel like you're grinding to a halt because you're being magnetically binded to something invisible. I noticed the tonal changes right away, and I discovered that I had this sort of curious ability to know what they were. Like I'd hear a tone, I'd be like, that's sad. That's angry. I just worked on somebody yesterday. I got to age 10 and I was like, did you move when you were 10? And she said, yeah. So many, 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 many thousands of hours have revealed to me that there's this whole vibrational language. Like our memories don't get recorded in English or French or Spanish. They get recorded in vibration. And all of nature speaks the same vibrational language. So fear is the same for you and me as it is for dogs and dolphins and even plants. All of nature shares this fundamental vibrational language that the tuning forks actually are like an invisible ink decoder, and they reveal and show the tone in this very true fashion. And it really is a lot like music. So it took me many, many years to identify different tones. Fear, which is actually one of the easiest tones to hear, was pretty much the last emotion that I identified. Sadness was the first. And the reason why I identified sadness first was because I felt a lot of sadness in my life. Like a big part of my healing journey was healing my own deep sadness that was also my mother's and her mother's, and sort of a genetic lineage on the maternal side of like this heavy sadness. But I lived my life pretty fearlessly. And the reason why is because I'm the littlest of six and the runt of the litter. And there's a pretty big age difference between me and the rest of them. And when you're in a pack and you show fear, you get attacked. It's just kind of a law of nature. And so I learned at a very early age to suppress the feeling of fear so that I just didn't even feel it, didn't recognize it myself. Started traveling around the world by myself when I was 17, never afraid of anybody, anything, anywhere. Really very, very fearless. And because I was not in touch with my own feelings of fear, I just didn't recognize it when I came across it. And people, I didn't hear it, I didn't perceive it. And the first person that I worked with a woman who was very heavy set, and she had a lot of fear. And I suddenly heard it and heard that pulsing quality. And I was like, oh my God, that's fear. And then I felt it in myself a few days later. For the first time ever, I was like, wow, and it doesn't mean that it wasn't going on previously. It just means that I had been really good at suppressing it. And so some people, when they're learning, pick up on the language right away. They learn it very quickly. I mean, there's certain sounds that we can teach in class, like depression has an undertone. It sounds sort of like Eeyore. It's kind of like, you hear it in the undertones. If people have a very vicious inner critic that's always giving them shit inside their own head, that has a kind of a growl to it. You can hear the growl in the fork of that character that's not kind. If people are in something like a car accident, right, there's a sound of alarm. Or if you just discover your partner has been cheating on you, there's a kind of that comes out. The fork goes very sharp. And then there's a whole crazy language beyond that, a whole language of pathology. Fatty liver sounds really different than a healthy liver. Heart arrhythmia can be picked up. Any kind of disease or disorder is making noise, right? A healthy system is harmonious. It's making music. Everything is playing from the same sheet music to the same metronome, and everything is groovy. That's optimum health. But when we get out of balance and out of sorts, this organ goes flat and this organ goes sharp and this organ stops making sound altogether, and we just go out of tune. We really are like instruments or like cars, we just like cars and instruments need to be tuned. So does our human body in order to stay in its potential for health and wellness. So we want to get the noise out of the signal. And the noise can be anything. It can be beliefs, it can be ancestral inheritances, it can be emotions that we're suppressing and not allowing ourselves to feel. They kind of pile up and create a backlog. Um, you don't need to understand the tones to do the work. Some people just don't really ever get them, and that's totally fine. But that doesn't mean that they're not a good practitioner, because everybody can feel where you hit resistance and turbulence. And I've mapped the field. I mapped the entire field that extends 6 feet on either side of the body, this magnetic bubble that is our magnetic field, our biofield, and discovered that it has a whole anatomy and physiology, and that it contains all our memories. All our memories are not stored in our brain. They're stored in standing waves in the biofield as information, in patterns and in specific areas. So as we generate information about how we feel, what we're experiencing is all vibrational. That information moves away from our bodies. So information I find at the outer boundary of someone's field, and it really is like a bubble, is gestation and then birth. And if they're 60, about 3 feet away from them, I'm going to find memories from when they're 30. And when I get real close, I'm going to find out what's going on right now. So all a student has to do is locate an area of resistance and plot it on the map. And they can be like, oh, I'm hitting some turbulence in the zone that holds the information of sadness and grief. And in your timeline, I'm about at age 10. Does that ring a bell for you in any way? And generally the client will say something like, oh yeah, that's when my grandmother died and I was so sad. My parents never talked about it. I da da da. Right? That memory is still kind of frozen in the memory banks. And so all a practitioner needs to do is hold the fork in that very specific spot, give the body the feedback of the energy and information present in that memory. And the body will relax, it will harmonize what it hears, the resistance will drop out, and then the student just goes to the next place where they get stuck. And that's really it. So it isn't necessary to understand the language. Most people learn the language in time, like you would learn any language. You know, I'm learning to play the guitar, and it's taken me a long time to be able to play chords without looking at them comfortably. Any new thing, especially a language, is going to have a learning curve in it. And most people find that over time, you know, like there's this very specific tone that I have learned. It's usually in most people around age 6 or 7. It's in the area off the right hip. And it's the tone of wetting your pants in first grade at your desk because your teacher wouldn't let you get up and go to the bathroom.
Huh.
And that has an incredibly distinct sound of shame, of freeze, of self-consciousness. Like it's a thing that I've learned. And now I can work on somebody and be like, did you wet your pants at your desk in first grade? And they're like, how did you know that? I'm like, because I understand what that sounds like. And I recently had a student say to me, hey, I identified when somebody wet their pants in
Oh,
first grade.
man.
So that's the specificity that can be heard in here. Another time I said to a woman, did your father try to teach you how to drive a stick shift when you were 16 and you couldn't get it, and the quality of your relationship went downhill after that? And they were like, yes. Like, how did you know that? And I was like, well, around 16, the tone in your father zone, which is on the right side of your solar plexus, gets really chaotic. And then it kind of, the quality of that relationship dissolves after that. And so what happens when we're 16? Well, we learn how to drive. And I just could hear Dad having a hard time. It's there. You know, psychics are not psychic. There's no such thing as paranormal, or like, it just isn't. Like, our experiences are vibrationally encoded into our electromagnetic fields. And sensitive people know how to use their own fields to read that information. There is nothing woo about it at all.
I wish people could see the gesture you just made with the fists. There's nothing about it. That's awesome.
I'm so tired of the woo argument. I just have to think, Wendy, like, just so over it. I'm like, it's electricity, people. Like, get over yourselves. Let's understand the electrical system a little better and stop this nonsense of woo. There's no such thing. It's just a paradigm lie.
I feel you. I have spent years trying to overcome my embarrassment of the work that I do, and finally I'm like, fuck it. Well, I love that you're talking about language, electricity and energy as a language that you learn to decipher. And then you created a whole map based on what you discovered, which I think is really amazing because I frequently will talk about in my shamanic practice that when you are in an altered state and you're perceiving things visually, you're seeing the symbolic realm, and becoming adept at that kind of work requires you to learn the language of symbolism and to understand what those symbols are trying to tell you. They all have a story and they're being shown to you for very specific reasons. And it's taken me years to become comfortable and familiar with the symbols. Like, so now when I see the symbol of water, I know that there's something up with somebody's emotions and the state of that water, whether it's ice or mud or whatever. I just love the idea that if you think about language, you're thinking about communication, you're thinking about information, and that you can start to learn to interpret, whether it's symbolically in the shamanic realm or dissonance in the energetic realm, that it's information, and that information is trying to get your attention. It's trying to tell you something about someone's health, someone's state of emotionality. And that's what's been really cool since opening this wellness center with the light and sound healing chamber, the energy genesis. That's what's helped me kind of see the difference between the shamanic realm and the energetic realm, which I do see as very separate, which I think is controversial for a lot of people. To me, the shamanic realm is the realm of pure consciousness, and the energetic realm is a shadow of that consciousness. They're intimately linked, but they communicate differently. One communicates through vibration and the other communicates through symbolism.
Yeah. I would say that ether is the state of matter where we go into in the shamanic realm, where we see symbols, where we see geometry, whereas plasma is the state of matter that makes up our biofield, our electric soul, if you will. And the ether is more what we call spirit, is finer, is fundamentally somewhat immaterial, but filled with ideas and images and geometry. And that really it's a continuum, like states of matter, states of being are a continuum from the sort of most fine ether, which then sort of spins itself into plasma, which then turns itself into gas and liquids and solids. But fundamentally, everything comes from that place of pure consciousness, pure potential. But there's like levels or layers, but ultimately it's all the same stuff. It's just a field of pure potential.
Right. Just depending on where you're focusing is how you're going to perceive. So if you're focusing on the energetic realm through sound or whatever, you're going to perceive it as vibration. If you're focusing on the ether realm, then you're going to perceive symbolic,
Yeah,
or I
exactly.
call it the dream time. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's all intimately linked together to give us this experience. Let me shift gears a little bit and ask, what are you cooking up now? Like, because I know you to be someone who's very curious.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious about what you're curious about right now at this stage in your life.
Well, I originally, before Tuning Forks came into my life, got it in my head that I was supposed to sing. I basically was given direction from my inner guidance that I was very in touch with, because I started traveling by myself. Actually, I started when I was 16 traveling by myself, but I spent a number of years sort of traipsing around the globe by myself in various ways and really learned to trust my inner guidance. Because when you're by yourself on the other side of the world as a teenager, with no cell phone or anything like that. All I had to rely on was my own inner guidance system. And I learned pretty early on how to tease out the voice of my conscience, the voice of my best director from the other noise in the signal. And when I was about 20, that voice said to me, "You need to learn how to sing." And I laughed at it. I was completely non-musical. I was the kid in music class who clapped on the off beat and sang off key and squeaked my clarinet. I was hopelessly non-musical. Came from a non-musical family. Nobody played an instrument out of 6 kids. And I said, absolutely not. I will not learn to sing. But you know that scene in Harry Potter where the letters come in to let him know he's got to go to Hogwarts, and they start coming in the windows and down the chimney and in the door, and like there's the, if you've ever seen the scene, you know what I'm talking about. There's so
I haven't seen the Harry Potter movies, but I have seen that scene.
that
Yes.
scene, yeah. So my conscience flooded me like that so relentlessly that I had to yield, and I went and signed up for a singing lesson with my high school music teacher down the road, and had the most traumatizing experience that you could possibly imagine. She's sitting at the piano and she's playing middle C over and over again. She's trying to get me to go ah, and I feel like I've got strong hands around my throat. I can't make a sound. My knees started knocking, my palms started sweating, my bowels started turning to liquid. I couldn't make a sound. And then I finally, after like 15 minutes, like croaked something out and then burst into tears. And this poor woman was not equipped for that at all. And I left the lesson going, what on earth is wrong with me? Like, why was that so hard to just go, ah? And I didn't know why. Like, all I knew was that there was some kind of pretty big trauma in the way of me being free to express myself in that way.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah. And that it was, for all intents and purposes, pretty impossible. But because that guidance was so relentless, I continued. And sort of long story short, over the course of 7 years, from age 20 to 27, I had 7 different voice teachers. And the first 5 told me that I was tone deaf, that I didn't hear, that I couldn't replicate sound, and that I would never be able to sing because I was handicapped in this way. And I had years of speech therapy as a kid. I had a really messed up mouth. Actually, I was missing 4 teeth, and I had all of these spaces. I had an overbite and buck teeth, and I had a lisp. And I had speech therapy watching Mrs. Birkenruth's orange lipstick on her teeth, saying she sells seashells, while I was like, she sells seashells. I couldn't.
Oh,
Yeah, like my hearing and my ability to articulate are things that I've had to work extremely hard to correct, because there was some, just organic, not only an organic imbalance from birth, just in my mouth and in my hearing, but then trauma, being the youngest of 6. And, God knows, who knows what happened to me when I was really little, pre-cognitive. Like, what I've learned from Biofield Tuning is that so many of the things that inform us the most powerfully happen before the age of 3, happen where we have no memory of them whatsoever.
right.
I didn't have any memory of anything other than like a lot of tickling, things like tickling and camel bites and the claw coming after me, things like that.
What's a camel bite? Did you just
What?
say camel bite?
Yeah, do you know what a camel bite is?
I
Camel
do
bites are
not
the
know. I had to ask.
Camel bites are when you get grabbed just above your knee on your thigh.
Oh, yeah, those suck. I hate
They
those.
suck. right? And I have a brother who's 12 years older than me who used to give me camel bites on my left knee so often and so viciously that my poor husband, for years, if he were to put his hand on my left knee, he'd get a smack from me. It was just like a reflexive. I'm like, don't touch your knee. So, obviously, like there was the damage to the knee, but to other bits of me too, that really my healing journey, the whole reason why I went into healing in the first place was to heal myself and get myself to a place of wholeness and true health and freedom from all of that kind of ick, the stuff, freedom from the subconscious restrictions that withhold us from accessing our potential as human beings. And so clearly I had a tremendous amount of lock in my body around my voice and had to spend a whole lot of time. I started doing yoga when I was about 24 or 25. I started receiving body work, and that really helped to get me to relax and open. And so by the time I was 27, and because I've been working at this hard, my seventh voice teacher finally said to me, "You can sing and hear fine." So, guys, if anybody's ever told you you're tone deaf or that you can't sing,
Bullshit.
don't accept that verdict, okay? Because anything is possible with perseverance, And so when I was 27, I had a little band and we started making music. I started doing like spoken word and free form and I don't know, it was just a really neat little thing that we had going on. And my husband was doing, well, he wasn't my husband then, he was my boyfriend, but he was doing percussion. And I don't know, Wendy, if you've ever had the experience of making music with people, but it's super fun and it's super energizing. And
It's an amazing experience.
it's an
Yes, you're
amazing
absolutely right.
experience, and it can be a very sexy experience. And so I ended up shacking up with my percussionist and getting pregnant, and unexpectedly, and had a kind of traumatic pregnancy where I lost all my energy, and like the whole thing got shut down. The whole music, everything, just closed up that box, put it in the basement, and forgot about it. Picked up tuning forks and motherhood and have done that, for the last 25 years. But I'm feeling the need and desire to circle back to the voice and what can be done with the human voice and how to combine everything I've learned about the biofield, about the science of how sound impacts the electrical system, how intention informs how sound impacts the electrical system, and embed it into music. Because to me, making music with people and singing and dancing with people is way more fun than hanging out waving a tuning fork over one person. And the intention is to induce coherence. If what my mission is to bring more coherence to this sort of disorderly world we're in, I'm going to get much further embedding that into music and song in my ability to reach people and have fun than I am in any kind of tuning fork endeavor. The tuning forks are powerful, but to me, they've been like a 25-year journey of getting deeper into tune and really getting to know and understand the language of vibration and the emotional language of vibration, and how the emotional language of vibration can be even more fine-tuned into music, more nuanced, more subtleties. Because it's in the subtleties and the nuances that the magic really happens. And so I've made this huge journey into understanding all of that. And now I've kind of come full circle back to the music piece. And so that's where I am right now. I'm actually working with several people in the music industry, big names that you would know, but I'm not going to say, and bartering. So I'm getting voice lessons, I'm getting music lessons, songwriting help, and teaching these people about the science of the biofield and how sound affects it. So these are influential musicians that I'm training basically in what I've learned. And I think we're going to start seeing more and more intentionally healing music out there. There's certainly a trend that is underway.
Absolutely. I'm always looking for music that was created specifically for healing to play in the energy genesis.
Mhm.
I'm curious, are you talking about the voice in particular or playing any instrument?
Well, you can play any instrument, but for me, I'm not interested in like bell, bowl, gong music. Like I'm so over the sound healing thing. I want to play rock and roll. I want to get down. I want to party. I want to have fun. Life is short, and the world needs more singing and dancing. And I think that we don't need to sit around and be mindful, and we don't need to sit down and shut up. What we need to do is get up and make noise.
Well, that's a very different message than everybody's getting.
I know. No, we have.
Look at you, shaking shit up.
Yeah, we have no, we have too much emotional pressure, too much intense stuff going on to just sit and be mindful. Everybody's got ants in their pants. Like, shake it out, like, move around. Our ancestors all drummed and danced and sang and moved. Like, we've turned into doom scrolling lumps. Like, come on, people. Like, this is not the medicine you need on your screen, you know? It's not the medicine I need.
No, no, it's not. It's definitely not. I've actually been, and it's been a ball. I have wanted to sing since I was a little kid. It was like the original dream I had. So I feel you on that too. So I've been kind of collaborating and acting as a vocal prop for these local cabaret slash burlesque shows. I
Hmm,
would sing while these very sexy women strip.
awesome. I love
It's
that.
been so absolutely beyond fun, and it's been great to use my voice again in that way. It's been a long time, so there's there's that. But it's very small, it's very quaint, and it's super safe in this environment, and it's just great medicine. At the end of the show, it's like everybody is just pumped, pushing themselves into territory that they haven't gone before, and so it's just been really good medicine.
Yeah, it's so uplifting to the human spirit, isn't it? Like that feeling when you co-create musically with people, you feel great afterwards. You just do, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I was in an all women's percussion ensemble some years ago, and that was my first experience playing with other people. And I don't know, I can't remember if there were 7 or 8 of us, and we played West African drum rhythms. We played a lot of Latin rhythms. We played samba. And when we were in sync, it was magical.
Yeah.
It was a really cool experience. So I love that you're
Mhm.
doing that. Yeah, I'm not a big mindfulness person. I suck at it. I don't really I don't
Yeah.
I mean I feel like my shamanic practice is a really deep internal focus, and I like what you're saying. I agree with it. I think we need to have more movement, and music is the best way to do that.
Yeah, to express. I mean, we've been told to suppress, suck it up, have a stiff upper lip, sit down and shut up. Nobody needs any of that. No, none of that. Everybody needs the exact opposite, actually. We're told so many lies and we're led down so many blind alleys in the new age movement. Like this whole idea of like raising your vibration, which I don't subscribe to either. Um,
Huh. Well, that's just refreshing to hear someone else say that shit I've been thinking and haven't been saying out loud. It's just
Oh, I've been saying it out loud a lot because here's the thing, I'm a sound therapist of 25 years now, and I'm also an author. I've written 2 books and recorded 2 audiobooks, and I've spent many tens of thousands of hours at this point listening very deeply to what people say, listening very closely to the vibrational emanations of their body, and and it's not technically correct to say raise your vibration. The whole idea is that higher frequencies are better than lower frequencies. And so we need to raise our vibe to be whatever, I don't know, holy, like, or to ascend, to like ascend to another dimension. And to me, that's just incredibly escapist. That like, oh, life here in 3D really sucks. So I'm just like raising my vibe to go to 5D. Like, what does that even mean?
I have been wondering that myself.
Like, how is 5D any different why did you skip 4D? Like, I just don't get it. And
When we talk about the nature of reality, especially from the Hawaiian perspective, which was the foundation of my training, there's this experience you can have when you reach the holistic level, which is when all the boundaries melt away and you become one with everything. As I keep saying, you're here on Earth. We're having this experience right here, right now. It's messy. There's a lot of suffering. It's difficult, and we're all trying to find our way through this experience. And by trying to achieve this sort of experience of nirvana, which is very fleeting if you can get there, where all the boundaries melt away. A lot of spiritual seekers are seeking that experience. It takes them away from this experience we're having here right now. Like you're saying, it's kind of escapist.
yeah. Well, it plays into people who've had trauma, because anybody who has ever had trauma and disassociated, which is what my thing was. Like, I was so disassociated, so continually disassociated. Whatever happened under the age of 3 made me have this tendency to just not be present in my body. And whenever something was uncomfortable, and that led to addiction, because I became addicted to sugar. And so I would be like, oh, I don't want to be addicted. I don't want to eat sugar. But because I wasn't present in my body, because I kept leaving my body, and then I come back to my body after I'd eaten like 10 pounds of sugar in some various different kinds of forms. So so people who've had trauma, like, it's appealing to raise your vibe. It kind of resonates on that level of like, oh yeah, let's go someplace better than what is here right now. Let's try.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think that the language, to clarify the language, is that we don't want to raise our vibration, because higher is not better than lower. Like, when you sleep, your brain goes into that really low brainwave state. Like, you need low vibes.
Delta.
Like this whole high level thing is just completely, it doesn't have any basis in, there's the whole like power versus force, and love vibrates at this. And I think that like people are trying to like, oh, I have to get above 500 hertz, whatever that means. That was all determined by muscle testing. But I'm not going completely buy into that whole like Christ is 1,000 and love is 500 and whatever, because that just feeds into this higher is better. What we want to do with our vibration is we want to clarify our vibration. We want to get our vibration in tune. We want to find our vibrational sweet spot and live from that. And we don't want to go higher. Like, we actually want to descend into the body, and we want to radiate. We want to expand from our core in every direction with a clear, bright, strong signal. And that's a very different experience internally, to radiate a clear, strong vibration, than to raise your vibration.
What's fascinating is that when people are having these sound healing experiences in the energy genesis, I keep bringing this back because it's my only reference, the most delicious experience they have across the board is the deeper bass, slower vibration.
Yeah.
I love it myself. It feels so good. But I think it's because it's really grounding. It pulls you down into like, all right, here we are, as you call the 3D experience.
Yeah, and that's where we want to be. Like, this is where we are. Let's commit to being here. And I think a lot of people, myself included, kind of felt like, dude, I don't dig this scene at all, man. It's harsh and it's like crazy. Like, I want to go. I want to
And
go.
yet here we are.
Yeah,
Yep.
here we are. And so if you're trying to vibe higher, you're not influencing your environment by radiating from your core. When your boots are on the ground and you're here in present moment and you are embodied, you are a much better manifester, creator, and influencer of your environment. And we want to work on like improving our environment. Like, go out and pick out you're better off, in my opinion, going out and spending 20 minutes picking up trash in your neighborhood than you are sitting for 20 minutes in mindfulness. Right?
Yeah.
Like this, I also think it's very strange that we've been programmed with this need, like we're supposed to be Zen, like we're supposed to be some kind of like spiritual adepts and not get irritable, not get frustrated, not get angry, not get sad. Where did this idea come from? Like, we're human. Our emotions are super important. My years of suppressing anger with sugar turned me into a doormat people pleaser that ended up exhausted and drained because I had suppressed my own fire and my own ability to set boundaries. And so we all need to know when somebody does something that's inappropriate that we can get fiery about and use that fire to set a boundary and be like, no, not my watch, this is not happening, right?
Right.
So this sort of denial of emotions is what's making people sick. Our emotions are a navigation system, just like physical pain. Emotional pain is the same thing. It's part of our immunity. It's part of what keeps us healthy. We need to feel every single emotion that's generated. And there are no bad or negative emotions. There are simply your body's response to life, which is an absolutely appropriate response if you're having it. You just got to learn what to do with it. And that's a whole other conversation.
Yes, I bet it is. Well, I have to say, Eileen, that you've certainly found your voice and you articulate it beautifully.
Well, thanks, Wendy. It's been, a 30-year journey and it's still ongoing. It's getting into, I still haven't crossed the big bridge, which is to actually sing in front of people.
Really? You haven't done that yet?
No, I haven't really had the opportunity. I've been working with some vocal coaches for the last year, because I picked this thread back up again. And we've written some songs. I'm working with the brothers Corin, Isaac, and Torald, and doing a singing songwriting like personal journey with them. And we co-wrote 10 songs, and now I'm learning to sing them. And at some point I'm going to go to Ojai, California and record them. But I haven't done that yet. And I've kind of sung in front of people, but not in any kind of official capacity. So there's still plenty to learn and grow and expand here.
That's really exciting. I'm excited for you. It's incredibly nerve-wracking to stand in front of a microphone in front of a crowd of people, even if that crowd is actually, the smaller the crowd, I think the harder it is.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was a terror. It was like, I'm not afraid of anything, but boy, am I terrified to do that. And because it's my only big fear, that's why I was like, I have to confront that. Because, where there's fear, there's power.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
So I decided to just confront that head on. And so I'll keep you posted how it goes.
I hope you do. Yeah. That's going to be the next thing. You're going to start gigging and going on tour, and what a journey that'll be.
Yeah. That could be a trip. Who knows? But, I'm holding the image of stadiums, actually, not just for me, but gathering a group of musicians who are world-class, top drawer, best musicians, and which I'm kind of already doing, honestly. I've already got some of them I'm working with, and teaching them all about everything that I've learned, and then doing mass resonance and entrainment, 20, 30,000 people, and using the principles of resonance entrainment, of call and response, to get everybody synchronized and coherent together, so that we've got 30,000 people making coherent sounds together and putting that out into the collective. Yeah. So that's the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was actually one of the more powerful concert experiences I ever had. It was back when U2 was good, back in the 80s.
Yep.
I saw the Unforgettable Fire tour down in Virginia, and the whole Coliseum was singing together.
Yeah. So powerful. Right?
They left the stage, and then walking out to our cars, people were still singing.
Nice.
It was a wicked cool experience.
Yeah. That's giving me goosebumps, right? And that's the power of sound right there. That's the power of linking up, of getting everybody, we all got to sing the same song, of bringing unity. back into this extreme division that we have encountered. You know, at a concert, nobody cares whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. Nobody cares what your opinion is about abortion. You're all there enjoying the music and worshiping the music together. And there's a unity that happens that we sorely need. And I think that when concerts finally come back, people are going to cherish them and have a heart open in ways that they didn't previously before they went away. So I think that this time when we come back to music together is going to be extremely potent. And that's what I'm aiming for.
Well, all right. And well, they do say music is the universal language.
Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. So how do people get a hold of you or learn more about you?
Well, there's a website called biofieldtuning.com, Biofeld tuning.com. And there's a number of the tools that I created, tuning forks for Biofield Tuning. There's a Learn at Home kit with instructional videos. There are virtual training programs that we just created this year out of necessity. There are live and recorded audio, mostly with me, they're recorded audio Biofield Tuning sessions on specific ailments. There's a lot of those that you can peruse. I don't see clients one-on-one anymore. I stopped doing that in 2017, but we do have thousands of students and practitioners around the world. We've got a few hundred people listed on our website. So if you wanted to experience a Biofield Tuning session, there's a clinic in Burlington, and everybody is trained to do this work at a distance. So we didn't talk about how that works, but it works. We wouldn't do it if it didn't. So you can try an individual one-on-one Biofield Tuning session. And then YouTube. I've got a whole bunch of podcasts and lectures and videos on YouTube. So you can just search me on YouTube to find those.
Beautiful. Well, and I'll put some links in the show notes too. I'm really thankful you came on the show. I know I've been trying to get you on for a while and your schedule has been insane, but I'm really, really grateful that you came on today. Thank you so much.
You bet, Wendy. Great to talk to you.
Well, that was fun. Nothing like a good lower vibration conversation, I always say. I really like that Eileen is not afraid to challenge new age concepts that make me cringe. Speaking of cringing, if this podcast doesn't make you cringe, please consider supporting it by helping me spread the word or subscribing so that you never miss an episode, or giving Lucid Cafe a positive review on whatever platform you use. You can also support the podcast by making a one-time or monthly donation of any amount, just like Ben recently did. Thank you, Ben. Using the link in the show notes. However you support the show, please know that it makes me feel all warm and gooey inside. Thank you for listening. Until next time, stay safe and sane.